Welcome to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast with Eric Tashlein from Connecticut Capital. In this podcast, we help business owners and successful professionals plan for better wealth outcomes. Join us for this journey where we explore ways to help you identify better wealth decisions to help you achieve an unfettered life. It's time to ask yourself, what do you want more of?
Hello and welcome to Unfettered Wealth with Eric Tashlein. Eric, what's going on, my man?
Hey, good morning, Eric. I'm doing great, and I have an old friend, Mike Storz, on the podcast this morning.
Yeah, I know we got a chance to chat before the podcast started, and this guy is amazing, and the work he does is outstanding. And I think the three of us had just a great conversation and a lot of fun. So now it's time to include the audience. So why'd you bring Mike on?
Sure. So I appreciate what Mike does. So Mike's president of Chapel Haven, and Mike's going to tell better than I will, but he helps young adults that have developmental disabilities, such as autism and others, to ultimately live an independent life. So it's a great story, and I've seen the success that he's had there. So I'm happy to have him on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited he's here. Mike, thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Eric, thanks so much. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to meet you, and it's always fun to chat with Eric.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Mike, for coming on. Eric, thank you for the intro. And so, Mike, I've known you for a long while. Our children are friends, and we've had a lot of fun doing some mud races together. And, you're a fun, active guy. And I've always been intrigued about your career. And so I know that you met your lovely wife in college. I think it was at Providence. And you ended up getting into a field helping children and adults with certain special needs. And I never really asked you, how did you end up in that field?
Eric, thanks again for inviting me on your show. It is an honor to be here with you and, discuss my passion, which is Haven Schleifer Center. It's located in the Westville section of New Haven. And, what really brought me to this organization and where my interest began working in this field actually began as early as my high school years. We were required to complete a certain number of community service hours, and that's where I learned that volunteers were needed at a local YMCA to assist a special needs swim program. At that time, I was 16, 17. I was a surfer, lifeguard. I was actually doing swim instructing. So this looked like an awesome opportunity. And who knew that this experience would lead to what I'm doing today? It was really those individuals and their families that warmed my heart to a world that I wasn't familiar with. A world that I immediately felt that I wanted to be a part of.
No, that's awesome. And I know you have a big heart. I've seen you interact with these young adults over the years, and I know you have a lot of passion for it. So hey, I've worked over the years with families, with children, with certain needs. And the parents, sometimes it's heartbreaking because they have major concerns. They're getting on in years, and they're just not sure how their child with certain ongoing needs will survive beyond them. And, I have a sister that has some handicaps as well. So I've been there as caregiver over the years as well. So I know there's challenges. So if you could explain to the audience, Michael, what are some of the things you've done to really help these adults of special needs, adult children, sleep better at night?
That is a fantastic question. And it is something that does keep our families up at night. And as the president of Haven Schleifer Center, this question is what drives me and our team of professionals every single day. I'm so fortunate to have found an organization where its entire mission is dedicated to that very question. For those not familiar with Chapel Haven, we provide an opportunity for adults with differing abilities, ranging from autism to Asperger's to Down syndrome, to master the skills to live independently, living out their own dreams, just like any other neurotypical person. But to go back to your question, it was after a successful $40 million campaign that we were able to rebuild our campus, strengthen our programs, and provide a solution for families' greatest worry. And that is, who is going to be there for my child when I am no longer able? This transformational campaign has provided a peace of mind for our families and our adults, some whom graduated nearly a half a century ago, Eric, who can now be supported through an intergenerational housing model designed specifically to address their aging needs. Our mission is to provide lifelong services. And finally, our adults are now able to remain in a community they love, a community they call home, through the remainder of their lifespan.
That is awesome. And, you mentioned something, and listen, New England is notoriously tight-fisted when it comes to donor giving. And I know you have a national reach, but I've always been impressed. I mean, you and your team brought in over $40 million over the last few years, which really just blows me away, having known so many people that are involved with fundraising. So kudos to you and your team on that.
Thank you. We're addressing a major concern right now. And, there are a lot of organizations that are addressing the tsunami of adults with developmental disabilities that are graduating high school right now, and they're falling off that proverbial cliff of no services, no programming, or lack, I should say, lack of services, lack of programming, lack of housing. And so there's a lot of good things happening, but it's for our adults who are, around that 18, 19, 20 year mark.
Mm-hmm.
And where Chapel Haven has mastered that. We've been doing this since 1972. And now we're pioneering the next step. And that is, how do we care for these young men and women who are now aging and still provide them an environment that is enriching, engaging, tackles loneliness and isolation, and provides a setting where they can thrive in their aging years. So I'm really excited that the donors and the families were just as excited as we were with our mission. And raising the money was just an unbelievable task. And the passion is what allowed that to happen.
That's great. I know over the years, you talk about passion. I know over the holidays at times you've been the sensitive Santa. And
that's right. Top three moments of my life. Top three moments of my life is being sensitive Santa. First were my two babies, and then that experience. It's just unbelievable. For many of those children, it was their first time they were able to meet Santa, sit on Santa's lap, ask Santa questions in a, environmentally sensitive way. I will never stop doing that.
Yeah. And those are some of the things that you understand better than most. And if you don't have a family member with autism or Asperger's, most people don't really comprehend some of the challenges those individuals face. So it's just great that you're able to educate people around the world on some of those topics, some of the ways that you guys have helped these folks to thrive. And I was reading in your bio, Mike, that you've gone to Russia and spoken to professionals in Poland and other countries around the world. So I think that's just really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So if you can, I know you wear multiple hats as president there. I know it's a big organization. What skills do you find most helpful?
Eric, that's a great question. One of the skills that I think is critical in understanding our population is listening and taking the time to really know the individual that you're working with and their family. When you take the time and to truly understand where these individuals are in their life, what their goals are, what are the obstacles, and what are their strengths, what are their limitations, you begin to see a world through a very different lens. And that lens is really seeing the world through a person with a disability. And once you have that understanding and you have that knowledge and you can see the way they perceive the world, you have a much, much greater chance at developing these young men and women to become the best individuals they can be and have them reach their potential when it comes to independent living. So that has created a significant passion within me because I know that these adults are capable of having a neurotypical life, having a life just like another person who doesn't have a disability. I have adults who have come to Chapel Haven. They've graduated and now they're living on their own with a couple hours a week of supports. They're working. I have couples who have gotten married. When families come on our campus, you can see the happiness and the joy and the true empowerment that Chapel Haven provides to these adults. And it's infectious. And, families leave with smiles and tears, and they can't believe that their son or daughter, when they're on campus visiting, could potentially have a life just like them. So I would say the greatest skill you can do is listening and truly understanding the needs of the people that you're helping.
Oh, and I'm sure, when parents come in, it's a vulnerable situation. They're recognizing that at some point they need to pass the torch, and the fact that there's that level of trust that you build is awesome. The other thing I did notice when I've come out to visit you in the past, I feel like it's a college campus. Like, people there are happy. You're so happy to introduce them. Obviously, there's a high level of caring that is created there. They love you like a brother, as we walk through. So it's just such a cool college campus feel that you guys have created. And I'm sure 50 years ago, it was nothing like that.
Oh, yeah. 50 years ago, we started off just like any good, really strong nonprofit organization. It always comes from the families. And that's where the heart and the passion, it's embedded within those families who want to make a difference for their child. And 50 years ago, Chapel Haven was created by two amazing, amazing families, Jerry Rossman and Sidney Crass, who recognized that, hey, my child has the ability to do much more than what the educational system is providing right now. And think about that 50 years ago, that mentality of, hey, this isn't good enough. They can learn more. They actually have the ability to live on their own if we're able to provide the education to them. I mean, that is really some future thinking, and what a vision that they had. So they started the program on Chapel Street with a 3-family single home with a couple staff, 6 adults, and a resident dog. And then word got out. Oh, and the greatest part about this was they thought they would teach them all these skills and that they would move back to their home community and get an apartment near mom and dad. Well, what happened, and this is why I love this organization so much, the adults, after they learned how to live independently, didn't want to go back home. They were accepted by the greater New Haven area. They became part of the community, and they had friends, and they did not want to leave that. So instead of these parents saying, no, you don't have a choice, this was the plan, we're coming home, they adapted and they created more programming and more supports. And we eventually grew from 6 individuals just through word of mouth to now serving over 250 individuals in our community who are all living a meaningful, independent life to whatever capacity that they have with supports.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. So I know there's so many great things that have happened at Chapel Haven that are happening. Is there out of all those, what are you most proud of?
There are so many examples and so many things that I could discuss with you right now about how proud I am of this organization. I mean, we could start with individual stories of every single person and family that we've touched. There's just not enough time in this podcast to be able to go over all of them. But in general, back in 2010, when I became president, my team and I inherited what we would like to say a lovingly used campus. We were also faced with adults who graduated back then over 30 years ago who were struggling with aging as a new obstacle to independence. In that time, I mean, this broke my heart, Eric. At that time, their only choice was to either move back home with their aging parents, move back home with their siblings, go to a nursing home, which was completely inappropriate, or a group home-like setting, which again was not appropriate for these individuals. What was so heartbreaking is they did not have a choice to stay in a community that they love, a community that they call home, a community of all of their friends, because there were no age-in-place services. So to answer your question, I am incredibly, incredibly proud that we were able to is a successful capital campaign that has completely transformed our campus and has allowed us to elevate not only our facilities to match the excellence of our award-winning curriculum, the excellence of our staff, the excellence of our reputation, because we are internationally known. People from all over the world come to Chapel Haven. But this transformation now allows our adults the choice to remain in a community they call home throughout their entire lifespan. And I would like to share a story.
Sure.
with the audience. When we made this announcement to our community, we invited all of our adults on campus and we said, hey, listen, this is our future plan. This is what we're looking to do. We want your feedback on this. When they learned that they did not have to worry about leaving the greater New Haven area and that we will be there for them through their entire lifespan, the entire room, it was like a huge standing ovation. It was filled with cheers, smiles, laughter, tears. It was as if there was a real sense of relief and a peace of mind that we would always be there for them. I'm telling you the truth. I could not get out of that meeting without every single person coming up to me, either hugging me or thanking me personally. And that is probably the single most thing that I'm proud of. But, we're not done. We have one more expansion and another campaign beginning to complete this amazing story. So good things to come.
Yeah, that's great news. Again, kudos to you guys. So COVID, right? I know I'd spoken to you a few times during COVID. I know you had a tough bout yourself, but I was really impressed with your story in terms of protecting the kids there. And I would love for you to share, obviously all nonprofits had some challenges during that time, but if you can share kind of what you guys did and how you emerged through it, because the story is great. And it's really, I think, unheard of how well you did protecting the folks in residence there.
Yes. Thank you, Eric. We all know how devastating the pandemic has been. This pandemic really impacted our mission and really impacted our ability to provide meaningful services to our adults. It actually abruptly stopped a successful campaign because we had to immediately switch our energies from completing the campus transformation to focusing and securing the health and well-being of our adults. And at the same time, the sustainability as Chapel Haven as an entity. One of our biggest concerns was with all these stay-at-home orders that we've had and individuals in our community, in their own apartments, not being able to see friends, be engaged, and we were so fearful of isolation and loneliness. So it was all hands on deck, and we did truly pull off a remarkable outcome. We never closed our doors. And what a promise and what a statement does that make to families that no matter what life throws at us, we will always, always be there for your son and your daughter. Our amazing team of professionals quickly adapted and continued to provide services to everyone who remained in our community and on our campus. We took the entire curriculum and within weeks offered virtual offerings to people that are living on campus, to people who are living in their own homes, or people who went back home. We offered wellness programs, recreational opportunities for the entire community. And the number one goal was to keep adults safe from the pandemic while making sure they are fully engaged. And I am so proud that our staff understood the importance of making careful decisions about outside of work activities to not put themselves in a position where they would put our adults at risk or our staff at risk, or even them or their own family. And with the policies and the procedures and everything that had to be developed so quickly, I'm proud to say that we experienced zero community spread of the virus. And because of our wonderful donors and our families, we are financially strong coming out of this.
Yeah, that is amazing. And the fact that there was zero spread is really, I think, unheard of, especially when you're dealing with, and maybe it wasn't the 250 that you normally deal with, but even if it's 100 people, that's just so.
I give all that credit, Eric, to our adults. We can provide the tools, we can provide the advice, but it's them who have to take that advice and do it on their own. And I was just completely amazed how serious our individuals with disabilities took this pandemic. And I'm so proud of them for following all the guidelines that we were supposed to follow to keep ourselves safe. And they did. And they did it. It was a struggle, but because of the supports that we put in place, they were able to get through it. And many of them have received their vaccinations now. And the thing that I'm looking forward to more than anything is shifting back to what was once the norm.
That's very cool. Mike, I wanted to ask you, so I know you have hundreds of stories, if not thousands there. Is there a story you could share about maybe a new resident in your program and a kind of a transformation you've seen in that individual? Like, I'm sure you have tons of success stories, but is there one in particular, like, wow, this person completely developed to a level that we were just amazed by?
Boy, Eric, that's
I know there's a lot.
That is so hard to kind of pick one adult, because every adult that comes through these doors and graduates has an amazing story attached to them. But I have to say, there's one in particular, and we were chatting about this individual right before the podcast, where he actually was able to help me fix our computer. But this young man came to us back in 2008, 2009, and he was diagnosed with having Asperger's syndrome. And this young man completed our 2-year program, is living on his own now. He has a roommate. He is incredibly intelligent, has an expertise in IT. In fact, when we were looking for a new IT support staff, we hired him right away, and he's been working with us, and it's been fantastic. But here's an individual who, because he took the time to learn from our curriculum and spent 2 years with us, is now fully supporting himself on his own, does not require any supports, and is living a life that he absolutely loves. And that story can just trickle down to every single person that we serve here.
Yeah, no, that's great. And as I said, I know you can't do tours. There's a parent obviously with developmental disabilities, you can do tours, but I feel very honored that pre-COVID I was able to kind of do a tour with you and kind of see all these individuals just excelling. For me, it was very just inspiring. I'm like, wow, that's just awesome work you guys are doing. So,
and I do encourage your audience that if they are interested in a tour, we do have policies in place to ensure the safety of our adults, but we are starting that up again.
Okay. So, Mike, thank you for sharing kind of what you do at work. It's such important work, especially today. There's a lack of services generally. But if you can't, tell the audience a little bit about your family, some of the hobbies. I know you're passionate in work and outside of work. What are some of the things you guys do as a family? And tell us about your family, if you would.
Sure. So, Eric, you mentioned that my wife back in college, and that's correct. I think I was 18, she was 17. And I've enjoyed about 30 years of my life with her. And we have 2 amazing children who are now 16 and 12. And Ava and Sophia are friends. And the things that we love to do as family, like right now, our entire life is consumed with sports and traveling all over the state of Connecticut, New York, New Jersey for games. So we're a pretty active sports family. But what we love to do as a family every year is we do go on some special vacations that are consistent, traditional vacations with the family. But we always throw in one mystery trip a year. And I love that because the kids have no idea where they're going. They're so excited when they wake up in the morning to try to figure out where, are we going to a different state? Are we going down the street? They have no idea. And they look forward to that every year. So that's something that I love to do with the family. And as you know, in my spare time, I enjoyed torturing myself by participating in those obstacle course races. Call it a midlife crisis, I don't know. But why I love them is because I get to spend time with my friends. Eric, you and I spent many hours on these courses together. I wish we had more time to share some of the hilarious stories and and just the incredible bonding experience that we've had. But yeah, I love to ski. I love playing golf. Surf, play basketball, tennis, hiking. Yeah, I keep myself busy.
That's awesome. I have to say, you do, for anybody out there that has not done a mud race, after 3 or 4 hours when you finish, it is the absolute best beer you've ever had.
It's the only reason why I run them.
So no, it's good times for sure. So I was going to ask you, listen, I know that you're always helpful to everybody you come in contact with. I know that's one of your goals. Is there anything you could recommend if you have parents that may have a child with developmental disabilities, or if there's a listener that maybe has a family member with something along that line? Is there something you'd recommend to them, maybe to read or to research into?
Yes. One of my favorite books ever that I truly believe is a must read was actually authored by an adult that graduated Chapel Haven over 2 decades ago. And I discovered this person. I would go to concerts on the green, everywhere I was in the community. This young woman, her name is Bilezikian, would constantly have a notebook out, and she was writing and writing and writing and writing. And so one day I asked her, I said, "What are you writing down every day?" And she said, "All the life experiences that I have learned since I'm from Chapel Haven and how I'm applying them in my independent life." And I was like, my God, I said, we need to get this published. And it was some encouragement from her family and her aunt. And, we found a publishing company. And since this book was released, she is now giving public presentations. Montclair State University brought her on as an affiliate faculty member, where she goes as a guest speaker in their graduate level classes. She actually does trainings, for the faculty there. But I'm going to tell you the title of the book, and it's Dear Diana, Diana's Guide to Independent Living for Adolescents and Young Adults with Different Learning Styles and Special Needs. The long title, but this can easily be found on Amazon simply just by typing Dear Diana. But this book provides a helpful collection of advice and support for how to live an independent and meaningful life, all through her eyes and her own experiences. It is fascinating. It's a must read, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
No, that's great, because I think all of us have a lot to learn. There's just so many things. And as I said, I've got a few family members that are either on the spectrum or have some disabilities. And it along the way, I've learned a lot, but there's so much more that I'm just ignorant to.
Yeah, being a professional in this field, I could say the same exact thing. Each day brings new knowledge and new experiences and, new situations that we have to prepare ourselves for. And that's what's so exciting about working with adults with developmental disabilities, is that we're living challenges together and we're figuring out solutions together. And that's what makes this organization so incredibly wonderful, because it's a team, it's a family, and it involves everyone that person that we're serving wants on the team, and we're all working collaboratively together to reach their common goals. It's just an incredible place.
That's great, and definitely appreciate the fact that you're managing that and all the good things that are going on there. So, Michael, if somebody's listening and they have a family member that maybe could use your services or just learn more, how would somebody reach out to you or contact the organization?
I would encourage everyone to visit our website at www.chapelhaven.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We're always updating and showing activities and the wonderful things that our adults are doing. You get an idea of who we serve and the types of things that we do. But if you do want to take it to the next level, please reach out to our director of admissions, and that's Christy Chandler. And her phone number is 203-397-1714, and she's at extension 185.
Thanks, Mike. Again, thank you for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Eric, it's been an honor, and I'm looking forward to seeing you outside the podcast, but this was a lot of fun, and it's just so wonderful to have a platform to share how passionate I am about an organization and get the word out about who we are.
Guys, this was fantastic. Wonderful podcast. All my questions really revolve around the Tough Mudder events, and I was told I'm not allowed to ask those. So what I do have to say is, Michael, on behalf of myself, and I'm sure I speak for Eric as well, thank you so much for what you do, and please pass our thanks on to your entire staff and the organization. And congratulations to all those successful young adults and teenagers. I'm sure that you're helping to transition through this time of their life so they can have that independence. It takes special people to do that. So I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eric, for having me part of this podcast. And you're correct. When we touch one person, the ripple effect, how it just permeates through their family members and everyone that are supporting them is just enormous. So helping one people, we're helping hundreds. And it's just the best place to be.
Again, thank you so much for being on the show. Eric, any last thoughts from you?
No, that's it. It's definitely a feel-good podcast. So thank you both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And our last thank you, of course, goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast with Eric Tashlein. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Eric comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks so much for listening today. For everyone at Connecticut Capital Management Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Connecticut Capital. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. Content should not be construed as personalized investment, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your advisor, attorney, or tax advisor in regards to your individual situation. Eric Tashlein is an investment advisory representative of Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, and Connecticut Benefits Group, LLC are not affiliated.